What's up, everybody? We're back with another episode of Ex Nihilo Podcast. I'm your host, Eddie. I've got a special guest, Taylor Duke. She's a functional medicine expert. She's pretty awesome, all scattered around the internet. She's doing a lot of different things. Taylor, thanks for being on the show with me.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here.
You have one of the most fascinating stories I think I've come across sort of in the online space, because obviously you're a functional medicine expert, but being this influencer with so much influence and being able to talk to different people in different spaces around environmental health and nutritional health and all these different stuff, you were diagnosed with a brain tumor not too long ago. And so I would love to just start with that story. How did that happen? And then talk about like what you were experiencing and feeling, being someone who's known for your health, and all of a sudden now you've got a health issue.
Yeah, it was quite the curveball, to say the least. But I got to back up a little bit and share, because people always kind of fall into fear when they hear my story. Like, you're this healthy person and you had a brain tumor. And so I'll share the story, but I got to give Spark Notes, because I was actually really, really sick in 2012, 2013. I did a lot of medical mission trips abroad, had a lot of trauma in my life at that time, and I was really sick. And so the way that I even got into this health and wellness field is because I was sick and desperate. I was going to all these specialists, doing all these procedures, and so through that sickness journey, that's where the Lord kind of led me to integrative and functional medicine. I thought it was totally woo-woo. I thought it was out there. I was like, I didn't learn about this in nursing school, but I was desperate. And so because I found that and that helped heal me, I actually became a nurse practitioner and started my own private practice and wellness center. And so I just have to back up and say I was really sick years ago, because that's a part of the puzzle to the cancer journey. And so, it was 2022, and, I had a thriving private practice. I had 2 babies, a husband, and a wellness center that I co-founded here in Fort Worth, and life was good. And there was a preventative full body MRI scan company that actually was out in California, and they were getting a Texas location. And part of their marketing efforts and initiative to get the word out was gifting me and several other people in the area preventative full body MRIs. So they said it, and I was like, oh, sure, I'll do that. I have nothing wrong with me, but whatever. It's an expensive scan. It's a learning opportunity. And in that scan, they found a brain tumor, which, like I said, it was a total curveball, because 1, I'm this health and wellness person, and 2, I had no symptoms. I had no seizures, no headaches, no vision, no hearing, nothing. So it was very shocking and very humbling to be like, wait, I'm this person that's literally educating people about how to be healthy, and I have a tumor in my brain. But I have to back up with that, because the tumor had been growing 8 to 10 years. So it had been growing from the time that I was really, really sick.
Whoa, okay.
And praise God, I never became symptomatic. So we don't know if it stopped growing, if I would have become symptomatic in a year or 2. We don't have to answer those questions. God revealed it the way he did. And I'm thankful, because I was able to go get care and do a lot of integrative things to actually shrink the brain tumor in half before I had surgery. But yes, it was very strange being this person that educates about health and wellness, and then, all of a sudden having a cancer diagnosis myself.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, praise God for these whole body scans. Is this like the Prenuvos company?
Yeah.
Or what was it?
That's exactly what it was. It was the Prenuvo. And, obviously there's a lot of fear surrounding it and hearing my story, but I also say when you know better, you do better. And when you detect something early and can do early intervention, it usually leads to better outcomes. And so seriously, praise God. It was his provision for me. I'm forever grateful for that scan.
Wow, you just got them a lot of business. I'm sure every time you mention that, people are like, you know what? I think I could use one of these scans, and then they're doing a lot of good work, which is awesome. So you said, hey, I was sick a few years ago. This tumor's been growing, according to the doctors, for 8 to 10 years. Are you seeing? Are you thinking there's some sort of alignment between this sickness you were experiencing, maybe some health issues, and potentially a tumor growing back then? Do you think that there may be some overlap, or is it coincidence? What do you think?
No, for sure. Not coincidence, not genetic, definitely correlated. And I think that's something that our cancer conventional system is not looking at. They don't ask why. Why did this cancer occur? Why is the immune system have something wrong with it? Versus, the approach that I'm taking, we want to know why. And not that we're God and we're going to know everything left side of heaven, but, what's going on in the body that allowed this tumor to form? Because this is not normal. And so, what I know now, at the time I had no idea about integrative oncology, but I feel like I have my PhD in it. I really don't, but I've just learned a lot as a researcher and an advocate and a patient. And what happens, we all at any given point in time have circulating tumor cells. That's just at any given point in time. But the way that God created our bodies is that our immune system, when it's strong and when it works, it goes and takes care of those abnormal cells. But when our immune system is suppressed, that's when these tumor cells or these circulating, these cancer cells get out of hand and then a tumor forms. And it can take a lot of time for that to form and then someone to become symptomatic. So cancer is a process. It's not an overnight thing. You might get an overnight diagnosis, but when we look back at my story, when we look back at my lab testing, I had major immune dysfunction. I was struggling with parasite overload. I have a history of Lyme disease and co-infections. I had a lot of stress and trauma in my life, and that severely affects the immune system and our body's ability to work. And so, it definitely shocked me at the time, but the more I've learned, it just makes total sense and perfect timing. And even my conventional neurosurgeon and neuro-oncologist who know nothing about this integrative world say it's been growing about this amount of time. Wow. And if you trace it back to my timeline, it makes perfect sense.
So these full body MRIs, these are, operating probably outside of insurance. And American healthcare system probably not in on this at this point. Probably not going, hey, we should fund everyone to get a full body MRI once a year or every couple of years or something like that. To me, that feels a little bit backwards. It's like, well, let's pay for the MRI once we know that there's seizures happening, and maybe pay for some of it. I just can't help but just get my tinfoil hat on and go like, are they just behind in getting up to speed with what might actually be preventing people from dying? Or, is there some reason why, we're not going to fund this, but we'll fund it later? Like, is there financial incentive? I just can't help but think that. I don't know if that's where you're at, but that's where I go immediately.
Totally. And I think we have a very reactive healthcare system. And again, I'm someone who's trained. I'm a nurse practitioner. I'm board certified. I'm not a medical doctor, but I've gone through a lot of training and rotations to be where I am. I have the ability to prescribe medication, diagnose, order labs, procedures, and it is, we are very reactive. We are not proactive. And so rather than being focused on health promotion and disease prevention, we're focused on more like, oh, you have full-blown diabetes. Now we'll give you insulin and all the medications. It's not like we're looking at your glucose and your hemoglobin A1C and seeing things trending in a certain metabolic way and wanting to intervene ahead of time. We're very reactive. Once you have the problem, fine. We have surgery, we have pills, we have pharmaceuticals. So again, I'm not against those things. I think they have their time and place, but I think they're overprescribed, overutilized. No one's looking at health promotion, disease prevention, and there is a lot of money in the system, and you do have to ask questions. And I think more than anything, you have to take your health into your own hands, do your own research, be your best advocate, and quite frankly, kind of be different this day and age if you want to be healthy. Because if you want standard American results and standard American diseases, then eat the standard American diet.
It's hard not to just have that trust in the altruistic, almighty, company, large company, because of course they have to have my best interest at heart, because certainly they've got a giant building and their logo's huge. And so therefore they were doing evil or they were incredibly incompetent, then, they wouldn't be where they're at. But it seems like, and I wouldn't assume everyone's just evil. I think maybe there is a lot of incompetence going on. You mentioned maybe people are just behind. But nonetheless, I think your advice is incredibly valid. You take ownership over your own health. And that's got to be the way forward, at least for now, until these companies can also catch up.
Yeah, and I think we are going to start to see some changes. Even in the last couple of weeks, there's headlines about food dyes being, banned in the U.S. And even yesterday, they're talking about the EPA banning certain chemicals that are used in dry cleaning. So momentum is happening, and I think we're going to continue to see a shift in that direction, which is amazing. And people are going to be held accountable and liable, which I'm really thankful for. But yeah, we're doing a lot of things wrong as a country, and you really do have to advocate for your health and do your own research.
Well, speaking of all the different things that could kill you, no, I'm just kidding. There's just a lot out there in the environment that it can affect us, and maybe 10 or 15 years ago, this wasn't something I thought about as much. I thought as a former athlete, it's how much protein am I eating? How many carbs am I eating? Am I getting enough sleep? Drinking enough water? But there's just so much more to good health. And since you, someone who's been diagnosed with a brain tumor, I want to talk specifically around some of the environmental issues like EMFs and some of these other things. But let's start with EMFs, because I heard you talk about that recently. What are they? What are the dangers of them? And maybe what are some of the things we can begin to think about around preventing them affecting us so much?
Yeah, so EMFs kind of stands for electromagnetic fields, and they're invisible. It's an invisible toxin, right? It's not something you can see, taste, feel, or touch. Unless you're sensitive, some people can feel them and feel tingling and heat and sensations like that. But basically, it radiates from man-made energy. And so, again, I'm not Amish. Like, I am operating on a laptop that has Wi-Fi right now. I have a smartphone. But I do think that we have to be smart about how we use these devices. And so, you know, there are plenty of, big tech, wireless companies, whatever you want to call it, that say that it's safe. And we don't know how safe it is and what amounts for what exposure of time. And I think we are going to start seeing a lot of issues related to it. And again, the electronic industry can claim it's safe, but the World Health Organization has actually classified certain EMFs as possible carcinogens. And so, again, this is not something that's super popular. You're not going to hear about it. But if you go look on the WHO and you look at potential carcinogens, you're going to see that that is one of them. So, again, not a super popular topic, something that I was very mindful of my food and chemicals in my environment, things I put on my body. But one thing I personally was not as mindful of until I got diagnosed with brain cancer was EMFs, because it made me question everything. What can I do to help protect my body and my brain? And obviously I can't control and go back, but what can I do moving forward? And I'm a super proactive person. I'll go to the ends of the earth to make changes, to live a long, healthy life, to be here for my husband and my kids. And so I've gone to extreme lengths of looking at old studies. And there's actually, again, you're not going to hear about a lot of this stuff. This is something that you have to seek out. But when you know better, you do better. And so I was looking at, there's all these class action lawsuits in the 90s of these call centers of people that were wearing wireless headsets, and they had brain tumors on the side where the energy was and the electricity. And there, again, it's all the families of these members. A lot of these people have passed away, but they're saying, gliomas are caused by some of these things. And so, again, we can't live in a hole, but I do think that we can be smarter with technology, whether that's turning off your Wi-Fi at night. We did go to extreme lengths, and we hardwired our home when I got diagnosed. Like, we have a little Ethernet cord you plug in. I turn my phone in airplane mode when I'm not using it. I don't use, wireless. I wear wired headphones. I don't do the wireless Bluetooth just because I don't think... I don't think we know long term, And so, again, it was an extreme situation that led me to do more research into EMFs. But I really do feel strongly and passionate about it. And a lot of modern day things we're seeing, you can't help but to think that some of this man-made energy, we just don't know long-term effects. And,
Yeah. Well, it's true. I actually was going to ask you about AirPods specifically, not just because I'm wearing them. I happen to be wearing them right now if you're listening to this. But I've been hearing about potential EMF exposure from Bluetooth headphones for a long time. Airplane mode at night for sure. That's something we do. We have a couple EMF filters in our room. Killing the Wi-Fi sounds like one of the strategies you're using, but also, if I had a brain tumor, I feel like I would go the total route that you're going. But I also do wonder, if there is legitimate science around the fact that earbuds or earpods potentially do expose you at a high level. I'm open to shutting everything off. Like, I'm open to it. I just want to make sure, like, is it, so why do you do it? Yeah. Am I crazy? Or
totally.
Are people
you can get a measure. You can get a little meter and you can measure it when they're on and when they're off. So that's a great way to just say, like, hey, I see that when these are off and then when these are on. But again, it's not something that the electronic industry is going to publish. They're not going to publish all these studies, and I don't think they've been around long enough for us to know the long-term effects.
Yeah, so they just haven't been around long enough. And so that doesn't mean that they're not bad. It just means, like, we don't have any data on that. And it doesn't mean there's good data that they're fine. It just may mean, no, we don't have that data yet.
Yeah.
Right?
And some people experience symptoms. Like, some people have it and they're like, I started noticing headaches, and a lot of times in our society, we suppress. I'll just pop a Tylenol. I'll just pop a this. And I'm like, hey, guess what? God created your body really smart. And so when your body's talking to you and you have symptoms, you need to press in and listen, not just suppress. And so I do know people that are like, oh, I actually started having tingling when I got the new iPhone, or I noticed that I had a headache, or I noticed heat. So there are things that, some people just minimize and dismiss, or, oh, I ate bad this weekend. Maybe I'm just, have a little brain fog. So again, it's one of those things that it might affect different people in different ways. And we just have to lean in and listen to our bodies. And, some people may not feel anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, you just went and got a full body MRI and didn't have any symptoms, and you had a brain tumor. And I agree. Like, I don't want to scare anybody, watching or listening or whatever. And I really appreciate you up front. That's not the goal, is to like be scared straight. But do you
Right.
get people that are like, hey man, I'm really fearful of this. Like, what would your advice be to somebody like that?
Yeah, I think, a lot of people can live in fear. And the reality is we're not God and we can't control all circumstances and every single cell in our body. And so I think what I try to encourage people, and when I would be with patients, I'd see certain patients that would be trying to control and they'd idolize perfection when it comes to health. And that's not good for
Mm,
your health either, because the stress of being perfect is actually worse than probably eating a meal out. But I would encourage people, I'm like, you know what? Go out with your husband, have that date night. Stop living in a bubble in a shell and trying to control everything to be so perfect. So I do
yeah,
think people can be paralyzed by fear. And we have to think about our thought life. That affects our health too. But I also think, it depends on the person and the personality. But when you know better, you do better. I've said that so many times because I really believe that. And so I think when you can make healthier choices for you and your family out of purely like, I want to take care of the body that God's given me and I want to feel good and operate at my best, versus I'm doing it because, oh my gosh, I'm scared and I heard this. And that's where I had to share in the beginning. When people hear that you were this healthy nurse practitioner, doing all this health and wellness stuff, and you had a brain tumor, I want people to hear that I had a whole health journey and I was really, really sick. And that's what got me into this. And so, obviously, having going through cancer, like I've struggled with anxiety and fear. That's just something, that's the reality of being a young mom and what's next. And oh my gosh, I feel this, and so I have to combat that too. We have to combat lies from the enemy, and we also can't live our life in fear. We just have to do the best we can and enjoy, but also come at it from a place of caring for our bodies.
that's a good word. We're not in control of anything. We're not in control of whether or not we're breathing tomorrow for any number of reasons. And ceding control over to God is an absolutely paramount idea for anybody who's a follower of Jesus. But I also do think there's a sense in which our natural biological functioning is affected even by giving over that fear, and so like the anxiety levels going down, less depression, more feelings of well-being, and we could talk about the science of what's actually happening, but I do think there is a distinct mind body spirit connection here at play, that when the spirit is feeling well, the body does well, and vice versa potentially. And so I think that's all
Amen.
true. And yet we had in Seattle area, we had this massive storm happen like a couple weeks ago. This bomb cyclone blew through, and there's no infrastructure out here for any of this stuff. And so trees are everywhere, and everyone's power got knocked out for like 4 or 5 days. And I tell you what, Taylor, that was like the best sleep I've ever had. Was dark, completely dark, no Wi-Fi, no cell service.
Wow.
So cutting the Wi-Fi, there was something to that then, is what you're saying. Because
Yeah,
that was one
for
of the
sure.
things.
I've had people
Yeah.
that have done it there's a company called Tech Wellness. It's actually my friend. She's amazing.
Oh,
And
really?
she has a kill switch. So basically you just hit a little remote control and it turns off your Wi-Fi for the night. It's not free, but it's cheap hack, that you don't need it at night. Just turn it off. But I've had moms that have been like, because of your story, I've been inspired to do that. And they're like, all of a sudden my kid's sleeping through the night, and so I do think there's something
Oh,
to it. Obviously sometimes you need science, but sometimes you just need to listen to your body and see how you feel. And again, not everybody's going to experience this groundbreaking sleep. But I also think even just mentally, taking time to be disconnected. We are
come
so
on.
connected on devices and Wi-Fi and blue light. And I think we're so far living from the way that God created us to live. And so again, I'm not Amish. I don't just like have candlelight every night and wake up with the sunrise and wind down when I watch TV. We watch sports. I'm on my phone. I'm very normal. I live a normal life with technology, but I also think we have such an anxious generation and people with sleep issues and mental health issues. And I'm not saying mental health is because of technology, but I do think that it's a contributing factor that we don't consider because it's just part of how we live and how we operate and the devices we are constantly using and connected to.
That's right. Yeah, so you've got these EMFs, you've got potentially, things coming from all this technology that we're sort of inundated with. I mean, sleeping next to cell phones, outlets, Wi-Fi pumping, you got earbuds in. It's just like you're literally bathing in EMFs
Yeah.
nonstop. And
Dirty
obviously
electricity.
EMF,
You're bathing in
you're,
dirty electricity.
exactly. Well, I mean, and EMF exposure is like, to limit all of it is impossible. I understand all of that, but limiting some of that. But there's other environmental challenges, and maybe there was other things you were worried about as it relates to your brain tumor. What about things like candles and air fresheners, maybe just even pollution? Were there other things you were looking at to be potential inhibitors of your own health?
Yeah, and that's something our house is super clean. We don't really have chemicals in our house. That was even before my diagnosis. So again, I'd been on this health journey and I'd already, fragrance is a really big thing for women. We put so many products in our body and candles and air fresheners, and it's an endocrine
Yeah.
disruptor. So it can mimic estrogen actually in the body to where we have hormone imbalances. And that's the science is out there. You can go look on PubMed. It is like all over. But yeah, the fragrance, what we put on our skin, and people were like, well, does it really matter the lotion we put on our skin and the body wash and all that? And I'm like, yeah, it might sound kind of crazy, but I come from the medical field, and a way that we prescribe medications, there are topical medications that are FDA approved. So pain patches, hormones. So we know that what you put in and on your skin is systemically absorbed. And so that should make you wonder, what am I putting on my
Yeah.
body? And is it helpful or is it hurtful? And again, you can't control everything, but at least for the things that I put on my body on a daily basis, I'm mindful to, avoid phthalates and fragrance and endocrine disrupting chemicals. So I think a lot of
Yeah.
people, when they're pregnant, they start wondering, is this pregnancy safe? Is it not?
Ah.
And that's a time where a lot of eyes are opened. And unfortunately, a lot of things that there's a lot of chemicals that are allowed in our country that are actually banned in other countries. So it does make you wonder, are there studies that show this? And then for my private practice, I used to test people. We did chemical profile testing through urine, and you could see glyphosate, Roundup that was sprayed on crops, and you could see different environmental chemicals. And some people are really great at detoxing them with their genetic makeup that they've been given, and some people really struggle. And so, it's hard to know who's going to struggle, who's not. But yeah, I definitely am mindful of what I put not only in my body, but on my body. And that comes with personal care products, our environment in our house. And yeah, laundry detergent's a
Yeah.
really big one. So I
Uh-huh.
would always, when I would work with patients in my private practice, mainly women, that's just like who was drawn to me. I actually did work with several NFL players as well because they care about their
Nice.
bodies. It was their wife that was like, hey, I
Of
really
course.
want you. And then they'd be all in and they feel good and they would recover quicker and their inflammation would go down. But it was usually the wife's kind of channeling them in. But with that being said, I would love working with a wife on, say it was infertility or hormone issues.
Mm.
And all of a sudden I'd say, hey, just make a couple swaps when you don't do if you have the means financially and you're motivated and you're that personality and you want to make swaps overnight, do it. But sometimes it's just replace one product at a time. When you run out of your body wash, replace it with a clean one. And then it just becomes a way of life and you just stock up on the products are clean and that work. And so, I'd have a wife swap out laundry detergent because that's on your sheets, your clothes, your towels. That's one
Yeah.
simple swap that affects the whole family. And all of a sudden the husband's allergies go away and maybe the kid's eczema goes away. And so that was just one simple swap that it does. We have a lot of allergies and environmental issues. And so again, it's not even about just replacing things. Sometimes it's just the removal of toxins in our homes.
Sure. What I know I'm going to get questions, and I have the same question. Like, what would you recommend for detergent then instead? Is there something natural, or is there like product or anything you'd recommend?
Yeah, I personally, there's a lot of great brands out there. You can find stuff at Whole Foods, Amazon, things like that. It depends on if you're a powder or a liquid laundry detergent person. But actually, this is the easiest, best recommendation for all of our cleaning products in our home, from counters to baths to showers to laundry stuff. We use a company called Branch Basics. And I think you can now get it on Amazon, but they have a website, and it's something that I've used for, 10 years, and it replaces all the cleaning products in your home. It's a concentrate, and you just mix different, like the bathroom cleaner, you're going to have more of the concentrate and less water, but like the everyday cleaner, you're going to have more water and then a little bit of concentrate. So
Oh,
they
okay.
send you one bottle of concentrate and then a whole cleaning kit. They have like a starter kit. Shameless plug for Branch Basics. I love the
Yeah,
company. And
I love it.
anyway, so then they also have a laundry detergent. But there are lots of clean brands out there, and a great resource for anyone listening that is new and maybe overwhelmed by this toxin stuff. I have a lot of resources on my social media. I have a PDF on my website you can download that shows literally, this is what I use for this. So it's making it easy, foolproof. I've tested it, I've verified it. But there's also a great resource called the EWG, and it's the Environmental Working Group. And it's a website, and you can literally type in or scan any product to see what could be harmful in it. Maybe it causes allergies or eczema or immunotoxicity. Maybe it has neurological effects. And so that's a great resource, the EWG. And again, You don't change everything overnight. That's unattainable, mostly unrealistic. But
Yeah.
especially if someone is having health issues, hormones for women, skin, allergies, eczema, that's a huge thing that I say, like, just start being mindful of what you're putting in and on your body. And again, it doesn't have to happen overnight, but what we put on our body matters, and what's in our environment, it does matter.
I got to get that PDF from you. I'll link all this stuff in the show notes for people just so they can, if you're Branch
Yeah, for
Basics, we
sure. And
got
it's
the
on my
EWG's
trusted products,
website.
and it's free. And so
Okay.
much of what I'm passionate about is obviously, like, I have products and I make things, but I'm really just passionate about educating people and empowering them with resources for free so that you can advocate for yourself. But it's under free guides, and it's the most trusted brands master list. And so literally we have
Awesome.
everything from my favorite spaghetti sauce to my favorite noodles to deodorant,
Yeah.
and it's just a comprehensive list.
That'll be great. Yeah, I think that's helpful for people because, one of the things we don't talk about as much on this show is like sometimes we get so focused when it comes to health on just eating, just diet, just exercise. Maybe it was exercise prior, maybe now all of a sudden the diet's starting to be affected. But the environment, the idea, the basic premise of why this podcast is called Ex Nihilo is the idea that God made man from nothing in Genesis chapter 1. It's Latin from nothing, and that God's original intention designed for creation was for creation and for the created beings to be in synchrony with one another, and for God and man to be sort of united. And part of the fall of man and sin and all this is that God and man's relationship is fractured, but God, or man's rather, relationship with creation is also fractured. By the sweat of your brow, thorns and thistles, man's work should be produced. And so as a result, like, we're sort of trying to, in many ways, like reclaim some of what we lost in the garden through these weird, bizarre means, and some of that ends up being pretty awesome. We're able to produce amazing things, and other times it becomes these sort of like, it's where you get things like frankenfoods, and where you get things like glyphosate, and where you get things like pollution, and you've got all these different ways that we're actually sort of killing ourselves as a result of trying to produce a better life. And so I think it's important for us to like remember the way we were originally intended to be designed, and some
Right.
of this and our environmental pollutions and these different mycotoxins and neurotoxins, all these different things that are in the environment are affecting us at high levels.
Pastor, you're so educated. I
Well,
love that.
you get what you pay for. So
Well, and it is one of those things, like, again, we can't idolize this, and I want people to hear me sharing this. I've been in this world for over 12 years now. So it's really easy for me to talk about these things and have made all these changes, but even for me, it didn't happen overnight. And again, the reason I started questioning everything is because I was really sick and desperate. My hair was falling out, I had joint pain. I was 22. I was never the sick kid. I had full body rashes, really bad acne. I was super inflamed. Like, if you look at pictures of me, which I've shared, they're not cute. My face was so inflamed. I had
wow.
acne. I had full body rashes. And so I got into this because I was sick and desperate. But if you're someone that's listening and you're healthy, maybe you're just trying to make better choices for your family, or maybe you are someone that has struggled with skin issues, allergies. I think the reality is our healthcare system is going to lead you to believe that there's nothing you can do. You just need to do steroid cream, or you just have to take an inhaler, and you just have to take allergy medicine, and that's just part of your genetic makeup. And so I'm going to kind of challenge the system and say those things are not normal. Just because they're common doesn't mean they're normal. And we've normalized things in our society and issues. And so again, you have to do something different if you want different results. But don't just settle for, I have to live my life medicated. And again, times and places for medications. I used to prescribe with patients. I'm not anti-medicine. I'm not anti, healthcare system. But again, we've normalized so many things. And so if you
Yeah.
are someone that's listening and you're struggling, like, maybe do open your mind to, of course, exercise, diet, sleep, stress, taking care of your body, but also, like, what are you putting in and on your body on a daily basis that can affect your health?
So if people are listening and they're okay, well, like, I've already got all this stuff. Like, I've got the Wi-Fi on. I've got the the detergent, the Tide. I've got it all. Like, what are some things I can do to start maybe detoxing my own body from some of the exposure that I've been exposing myself to for the last 20 years plus?
Great question. And there are things, and I'm going to share that, but I think one of the best things that you could do is removal, right? It's free. I mean, it's not free because you have to replace certain products, but getting rid of those things, getting rid of the pesticides you maybe use on your lawn. We use something called Sunday lawn care. My husband was like, I'm not so sure. I'm on board with all the things you do, but like, if this is going to make our yard look like crap, and I'm like, no, it works, I swear. So again, it's just being mindful of those things, and our kids play in the grass, and our pets. So I would say removal, and just replacing those things. And again, I use soap. I am very normal. I'm a clean girl. I have makeup, but I just have cleaner versions of those things. So removal, replacing, and then as far as targeted detox practices, this is something that a lot of people don't talk about, but drinking enough water. That's a way to flush out toxins, and not enough people drink enough water. So usually 100 ounces minimum per day. It's going to depend on the weight of a person, but drinking enough water, having a bowel movement daily. If your gut health is off, that's a way that we eliminate toxins. So if you're not going to the bathroom every day, that's a problem. That's a red flag. That's a way that you eliminate toxins. Sweating is obviously so important. And of course, a lot of people put deodorant on to not sweat, which I get it. You don't want to walk around with sweaty armpits, but opt for cleaner deodorant. And sweating is good. It's a natural mechanism of the body. And a lot of deodorants actually have aluminum. So especially all these females that are putting aluminum near their lymph nodes and their breast tissue and clogging that up, that's just not good. And so, yeah, I mean, definitely sweating. You can do more targeted sweating if you do an infrared sauna. That heats you up at a cellular level. That's one of the huge detox modalities that I use throughout my cancer treatment. Detox bath. It's magnesium sulfate. So Epsom salt is a form of magnesium. So you can just do Epsom salt and baking soda. You can also take it up a notch and do more like clay baths, magnetic clay. We actually have a bath in my product line. It's a detox bath, and it has a lot of different things that help pull toxins out of the body. But yeah, sweating, drinking enough water, having bowel movements. If you really want to up level, you can get into dry brushing, which helps the lymphatic system, rebounding or jumping on a trampoline. And then you can get into more of the crazy things like coffee enemas and those deeper level detox, castor oil packs, but things that have been around for a long time, but they kind of sound a little bit woo-woo. But again, being mindful of our exposure to things is a perfect way to detox. We're not inundating our body, and we're actually allowing it to detox on its own by just not inundating ourselves.
I think one of the things, when I hear the word detox, I know what I think, but when I hear a lot of people mention detox, usually they're talking about some kind of like a shake thing that they made that will help them like get over eating Thanksgiving dinner. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, or
it's
like
I have a detox shake, like a juice cleanse, right? And so it'll just be like a bunch of like juice and not eating it or anything like that. What do you think about someone who comes to you like, oh yeah, I detox all the time. I like have like a smoothie after I'm done eating like from McDonald's. Like does that not the same thing?
I mean, smoothies can have good ingredients like fiber and flax and things that ground to things, that bind to things to excrete them in our body. But no, I mean, I'm definitely more of moderation, balance, and the choices that we make on a daily basis really matter versus like, I'm going to go hard and just like binge and blah, 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 and then do this crazy fast and this skinny tea and this juice cleanse. I think, I'm very 90% of the time I'm making healthy choices. 10% of the time I'm like not questioning where the ingredients are from. I'm also enjoying life. But even when I feel my best, I'm also not going to go for a week of like eating terrible, because that's just like not how I want to live my life. I want to feel good. I want to have energy every day. I want to wake up with my kids. I want to have mental clarity. And so I'm very much not the like do something and then mitigate it with an extreme tea or cleanse or powder or whatever. I'm more like just make healthy choices. And then when you are out and you eat out and it's not, perfect, whatever, it's not health food, then just enjoy yourself, and your body's resilient and it's created to detox when you fuel it properly.
Yeah, and I think that's key, fueling it properly, right? Because if you're eating whatever you'd like to eat, you do have to use a tremendous amount of willpower to sort of fight your hunger hormones as a response. And so if you've like triggered all these hormones, or maybe you've got like the taste for the Lay chips, bet you can't eat just one, and you've got all these different cravings running, and now you've got to use an exceptional amount of willpower to hold back from eating, and now you feel terrible as a result of that, and maybe you're chugging these weird shakes and you're trying to like go back, and then all of a sudden you're just in this vicious circle and this vicious cycle of back and forth, binge and don't eat, and binge and don't eat. I see so many people, and a lot of studies talk about how willpower is a finite resource. It is not something that is just infinite in your body that you can just like white knuckle your way through life trying to be healthy, going on these crash diets.
Yeah, and a lot of our foods are filled with chemicals and additives and sugars to make us be addicted. That's the thing. Yeah. It's like you could have a lot of willpower and self-control, but it's also, it's almost like a drug, a lot of these things, and especially for our kids, these excitotoxins and all of these things that make you want to keep coming back for more, and MSG, it's sadly, it's not that you're a weak person. It's that honestly, our food system just has a lot of these things that don't make it easy to have self-control at times.
Yeah, that's a great point. right, like school lunches, and man, geez, having 4 kids and seeing some of the things that they try to give them at school is crazy to think about. Like I wonder, like I used to wonder, like why am I so hungry all the time? And then as an adult, you if you eat good whole foods the way God created the foods to be eaten, it's magnificent how your body begins to self-regulate. And I know there's exceptions to the rule and all that, but the exceptional hunger that someone has after eating, like, these goldfish crackers or whatever, and you're just like, man, I'm starving. It's like, well, you just ate
They're
45
empty
minutes
calories.
ago.
They have no nutrients, no fiber. And it's like, I know people overcomplicate it. And it's like, well, what health brand is better than Lay's and what this? And there are good healthy swaps, thankfully, for a lot of these things. But even like McDonald's French fries back in the day, I don't know if you know this, they were beef tallow, potatoes, and salt.
Yeah,
Like that was
a
long time ago. And now if you look at the ingredient label, it's insane. And so we are being wired to be addicted to these foods. And what I always say is people are like, well, what brand, what this? And I do think when you can read ingredients and be able to be your own detective or advocate in the grocery store to know what's good and what's bad, I think that's important. But more than anything, I say get back to basics. Shop the perimeter of the grocery store. Like, what did God give us? Meat, eggs, vegetables, fruit, avocados. Eat the things that don't have nutrition labels and ingredient labels because they're literally one ingredient. And that's where people overcomplicate certain diets and cleanses and brands. And is this a healthy version of this? And it's like, just get back to eating the things that are one ingredient.
Yeah, that's such good advice. Eating around the outside. Of course, you got to be careful for whatever glyphosate sprayed on everything, but I think that's great advice for anyone who's like looking to get started. There's probably going to be somebody that's like, man, all right, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Like I want to get going. You've done so much. You've battled health issues in multiple different times, including having a brain tumor. You counsel people, you help people. That's what you do for a living. If you were going to just choose like your top 3 to 5 things, like if you were going to do anything, start here, what would be those things that you would choose to start getting healthy?
So I'm going to kind of maybe an unpopular opinion. I'm going to say get back to basics. So what are basics? Focus on nutrition. Again, you don't have to do this perfect Whole30 reset. Although I think there's a time and place and certain personalities do really great with certain meal plans, but just get back to eating real food. Again, the things that don't require ingredient labels, focus on sleep. Sleep is so undervalued and our body just repairs during sleep. It de-stresses. It's so important. So eat real food, sleep, manage your stress. We're all going a million miles per hour. We're connected to technology. Disconnect. Maybe you're turning off your phone at 5 or 6 at night and maybe you wake up to a lot of texts in the morning, but that is a way to de-stress. We're constantly triggered by all these messages and people needing things from us and news updates. And so disconnect, manage stress, get moving. Obviously, physical activity, exercise. It doesn't have to be this crazy 90-day challenge or this intense high-intensity interval training program. Like do what works for you. If that's Pilates, if that's walking, if that's running, I love weightlifting, do things to just get your body moving, get your blood flow circulating. It's good for your mental health, your physical health. It's also good to sweat. Get sunshine and fresh air. I mean, you're in Seattle, so that's kind of different. It's a beautiful day here in Texas, even though it's December. But yeah, getting sunshine and fresh air, it's getting back to the things that God gave us to take care of our bodies that we've become so far detached from. And yeah, I think disconnecting is a really big one. So I know that's a lot, but nutrition, exercise, sleeping, managing stress, disconnecting, all of those are going to be really crucial.
Well, everyone wants the cool thing because I was waiting for you to say,
cold plunge, biohack.
I need like a $6,000 cold plunge, right?
No,
you're going to give me permission to buy that.
Unpopular opinion, I'm getting back to basics. Now, don't get me wrong. I love my infrared sauna and I use it 3 to 5 days a week. And I have a PEMF mat and I have a lot of biohacking devices and that I've accumulated over the years and I've been gifted and I've invested for my cancer journey. I have a hyperbaric chamber behind me. But I think people overcomplicate it and it is easy to be like, I'm just going to spend money on the next best thing because we want these things that give us results. But the reality is you can be doing all these fancy things, but if you don't have that foundation in play of nutrition, sleep, stress, eating healthy and exercising, like all of those are just kind of a waste of your money, if I'm being honest. They might help, but they're still Band-Aids. You got to have that foundation and get back to basics to be healthy.
That's pretty true. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. Getting in a cold bath. It's like, well, you haven't changed your diet. You only sleep 3 hours a night. You're totally stressed out of your mind. Drink 500 milligrams of caffeine every day. That's great that you're doing a cold plunge, but it's more stress is probably not good for you at this point.
Right. And sometimes that can be a shock and jolt to the system. And people aren't eating enough protein. Probably your audience with, professional athletes and people like that. But women, I'm like, y'all eat protein. Eat
Yeah.
protein at breakfast. It will change your day. It will change your blood sugar. So there's a free health tip. Eat more protein. And lift
Yeah.
weights. Lift weights if you're a woman too. It doesn't
Come
make you
on.
bulky. It's good for you.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's not complicated. It sounds like you're saying it's not complicated. Sleep a lot.
We
Sleep a lot.
overcomplicate it.
Don't be stressed out. Eat foods the way God made them. You're not hopefully not ideally not out of a science lab, and let's see where you're at there and get a nice baseline. But you did mention some cool stuff. I gotta be honest. So I gotta hear about the hyperbaric chamber. I know the benefits as it relates to cancer treatment.
Yeah.
Where'd you get it? Which brand is it good? Talk to me about that thing. Why do you like it?
Yes, I have a hyperbaric chamber. It's Summit to See. We actually have it on my website. And the reason why we have it on my website is because, and again, I'm not like this huge hyperbaric dealer seller, but when I went through my cancer journey, I couldn't find access to any hyperbaric chambers in DFW without a prescription for diabetic wound management. It's not easily accessible. And then I couldn't find a way to buy it unless I had a medical license, which I did. And so anyway, we've made it a way for it to be possible for people. It's very expensive. It's an investment. I didn't have this as a tool, for myself as far as yes, there are plenty of anti-aging benefits, recovery benefits. It's great for inflammation. I specifically got it for my cancer journey, and, cancer hates oxygen. And so when you flood the body with oxygen at highly concentrated levels, it's super healing. And then also it's really good, you probably know, for concussions and brain injuries, just being in the league. And so for me specifically, having a brain surgery, it was a tough recovery. I was so blessed. I got out of ICU in 24 hours. I was walking, talking. I mean, I've had the most miraculous recovery, no therapy. But even though I didn't, need speech and occupational and physical therapy, it was still a really hard recovery for me. And when you take a huge part of your brain out. And so hyperbaric chamber has been game changing for me. It's great for wound healing, inflammation, so many different things. But yeah, it's been a huge part of my cancer journey. And a lot of what I did on the cancer journey was using a lot of these integrative things like high dose vitamin C, IV form, hyperbaric, red light beds, red light helmet. And it's not things that were offered to me through the conventional oncology system, but I went to Mexico, I went to California. There's a center, the Cancer Center for Healing out there, Hope for Cancer. It's a Christian integrative holistic center in Cancun. And in those 5 months of doing all those integrative therapies and getting in metabolic ketosis, we shrunk the brain tumor, really by the grace of God. We shrunk the brain tumor in half. So again, these aren't things going to be offered to you, but I went to great lengths to do anything that it took. So I didn't have a hyperbaric chamber before cancer. That was a after cancer investment, but something that's been very helpful.
Well, I'm super interested in getting one of those. So I've done hyperbaric a lot over the years, especially for recovery. And flushing some of that lactic acid and being able to just perform at a high level is really, really helpful. But yeah, that's something I'm interested in. But they have, what's so cool now in 2024, 2025 is they have these centers where you can get memberships to, and they've got red light therapy and infrared saunas and cryotherapy and hyperbaric chambers and IV drips. And so there are more affordable ways to do this. It'd be great if they were cheaper. But there are some
Definitely
ways
more
to do it.
accessible. I will say the best investment that I ever invested in, this is pre-cancer, was my infrared sauna. That thing gets so much use. And as a mom, my husband uses it all the time as well. We can do it when our kids are sleeping, when the kids are napping. We use the heck out of that thing. And that was the greatest investment. But it's not realistic for people to have all these biohacking rooms. And, again, we chose to invest in those things on my cancer journey because it was important for long-term for me to recover. But yeah, you don't need all those things to be healthy. But it is great when you have access to those things. And thankfully, there are a lot of wellness centers and memberships. That's my dream day. I just want to go do a wellness circuit.
It's funny. Me and my wife on one of our anniversaries were down in San Diego, and we literally just did that for a day. Went to
I love
cryo.
that.
Let's get vitamin drip. Let's get IV drips. It's very different than we used to. Think times change. That's what I'm excited
y'all
about.
sound like my husband and I. I'm like, let's go do a health day.
We love that kind of stuff. I'm glad you guys are into that too. So, okay. So hyperbaric chamber. You also mentioned this PEMF mat. I hear about this. What's so awesome about that?
So people hear PEMF and they're like, wait, hold on. I thought EMFs were bad for me. It's PEMF. So it's pulsed electromagnetic fields. And so we get natural energy and frequency from the earth. Like when you put your feet in the ground, it's called grounding. It sounds woo woo, but no one can negate how good you feel when you're at the beach and your feet are in the sand. Again, it's
Yeah.
another God given thing. And you ground and it's the earth's energy. And I know that sounds woo woo, but anyway, so a PMF mat that I have, it's super grounding. It is an actual mat that you plug in, but it has infrared technology, which works at a cellular level. It's super warm. It helps with recovery. It helps with sleep, anxiety, pain, inflammation. And one of the things I struggled most with after brain surgery, I've never struggled with this in my life, was insomnia. And I've never understood insomnia. I'd work with patients, and for me, I believe them. I know it's real, but I'm like, how do you not go to sleep? I just don't understand that. Like, don't you close your eyes and just go to sleep? After brain surgery, I finally understood. And so I got one of these PEMF mats. I have the higher dose one. It's not super expensive. It's definitely an investment, but I got one, and there's so many nights where I would have restless nights and I couldn't sleep, and I would just go lay on my mat, and it's the one thing that would help me sleep. And so it has been an absolute game changer for me. My kids flock to it when they're sick. My dog wants to go on it. But it's been amazing. It's been so wonderful for me. And I have a whole article if people want to learn. That's the other thing. I have a whole blog of resources of anything that you want to know about, whether it's coffee enemas, PEMF, infrared sauna. I guarantee you we have an article for it. PCOS, hormone issues, sleep issues. I'm so passionate about education. And so I have a whole article about PEMF and how I use it. And yeah, it's been a game changer for me.
Maybe you can send that to me and I can link to it for folks
Yeah,
too. That'd
happy
be great.
to. Yeah.
Another unorthodox thing you mentioned briefly, and we don't have to go too deep into it, but you did mention coffee enemas. That seems like that's as woo-woo as it gets, I thought. Is there actual benefits to that?
There are, and it's been around for a long time, and it is very, very woo-woo. In fact, my husband's on board with everything, but he's like, no, ma'am, that is a one-way traffic situation. We don't do that in this house. But a lot of people do it in a cancer journey. People hear of Gerson therapy, but essentially, high-level overview without getting into nitty-gritty, what it does is you do an enema with coffee, and it stimulates the natural production of glutathione, which is the body's most powerful antioxidant, helps combat inflammation, helps with anti-aging, and yeah, it's just a powerhouse for the immune system. And so there are a lot of benefits around it. And honestly, if you look back in time, castor oil packs, just putting that over your liver, just putting the oil on your liver, or doing coffee enemas, these things were around years and years ago before we had a lot of pharmaceuticals. So again, it's kind of getting back to the things that we have, but it does sound crazy and it's not for everyone. And again, sometimes people being on a cancer journey will do crazy things, but there are benefits. I have an article for that too.
How hot is the coffee when you guys do enemas?
Not too hot. You don't want it to like burn you. So
I'm just teasing.
Oh, you're joking.
Yeah, you don't want like boiling hot coffee, guys.
Not up the
That was
rectum.
obvious.
No, I'm like, you want it to be room temperature.
There's a lot of conversation now. So like, it feels like on social media, there's waves of things that are popular in this space. And so for we the gluten-free, be gluten-free, be keto, be carnivore. And then there's sort of like the cold plunge thing, the infrared sauna thing. Feels like people understanding the importance of minerals has really come back into fruition.
Yes.
Why do you think minerals are such a popular thing right now? But more importantly, like, why are we lacking minerals so much?
Yeah, our water supply, our cells are not as healthy as they used to be, so absorbing minerals and nutrients. And so, like when we talk about this high level overview, people are walking around even drinking water. They're like chronically dehydrated. One, people aren't drinking enough water. And two, the water's stripped from a lot of minerals. So things like magnesium, potassium, sodium. And then you also have to think when there was this huge low sodium movement, people are lacking sodium. People aren't getting enough salt. When you get enough salt, just like when you get enough protein, it will change your life. And so, we actually have an electrolyte. Shameless plug, there's so many brands out there, but I've had so many people say when I started taking electrolytes daily, I noticed a difference in my energy, my cravings. And it's not rocket scientist. You could also just put pink Himalayan salt in your water, and drink that. You don't have to have a fancy electrolyte from a brand. But when you are getting, the nutrients into your cells that you need, you're going to feel it and your body's going to function better. And yeah, people are just chronically dehydrated because they start their day off with coffee. And then they might have a couple things of water, and then they're going to have an afternoon tea or an afternoon coffee. And then they're going to have maybe a glass of wine at night. And when you look back at the day, they didn't have enough water. And so many people are shocked what it feels like just to have enough hydration and just to have enough minerals. And also our food is not as mineral and nutrient rich, and our soil's depleted for what it used to be years ago.
Yeah, that's an important point. So you might be eating your veggies and thinking, oh, this is going to replenish some of the, the vitamins and nutrients that I need. And well, they're not grown as good as soil, and they're not as micronutrient dense as maybe they used to be. And so now all of a sudden you're not getting what you thought in those vegetables too, which is
And
important.
I also have to say quality of salt matters. Like not refined salt that also has anti-caking agents and bleach and stuff like that. Just doing mineral salt is so helpful. And people are like, well, aren't you worried about salt and bloating? And I'm like, no, not the good kinds. It's so good for our body on a cellular level, and you'll notice a difference too.
Yeah. Speaking of gut, what about probiotics? That's a popular subject. Is that something that everyone should go do? Get some probiotics? Is that a thing?
I love gut health, and I'm the first to say, and honestly, when I was sick years ago, I was experiencing a lot of gut issues, and so that's kind of just become my passion and my story, and I've been able to help a lot of people with gut issues. And so first and foremost, gut is my thing, but unpopular opinion, people don't need to be on probiotics every day, year round. We should be getting prebiotic, probiotic rich foods that help us grow that good gut bacteria. Now, I absolutely think there are times and places for probiotics, and if you're going to take them, change it up. Don't take the same one year round. You want to get different strains of good bacteria, so change up the brands. But I also think, people can, generally speaking, benefit from being on a probiotic for a couple months. Most people have low beneficial bacteria in our microbiome in the gut. So probiotics are really helpful. But again, you don't need to pay for that every day year round. Now, if you're someone that was, say that you had a course of antibiotics, you definitely want to repopulate the gut with probiotics after taking those. But you don't need to be on them every day year round. And I say that as someone who's so passionate about gut health.
That's really good advice. Yeah, I think people see the word probiotic, they see that this food or this drink has probiotics, so they just go, well, this must be healthy. I mean, I actually know somebody who, when they get sick, they just go, well, you should probably just take a handful of probiotics, and that'll like knock the cold out or whatever. And so it's like a catch-all thing for them.
Mm-hmm.
I have a headache, probiotics. I have sick, probiotics. Stomach hurts, probiotics.
It's not the cure-all,
I don't think that works like that.
The gut is related to the immune system, which is good. I'm like, power to you. You're thinking the right way, but you might do better with some vitamin C and some herbs that are better for the immune system. But yeah, probiotics are important. Gut health's important, but it's a little overhyped. This probiotic drink and this probiotic cleanse, and yeah, take your probiotics, change them up, but you don't need them every day, year round.
I want to ask you one last thing before I let you go. Recently, you had a post talking about the most overlooked medical tools, and the first one you put was prayer. Now, I don't know if you have followers that are Christians or not. I'm sure you do. I have some, but some people may just roll their eyes at that. But talk to me why you feel like that's the most overlooked medical tool in your mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think people, especially in the health world, think that they can control everything, and the reality is they can't. And that has been a huge part of my journey too, of even shrinking the brain tumor and getting to share what God did. Some days I'm like, I wish I just ate Whataburger, and all glory to God. But I think God's using my story. But it's one of those things that I think prayer and surrender to the Lord and trusting in Him is so overlooked. And especially when it comes to the healthy, crunchy world. We idolize health and perfection and can control. And at the end of the day, I could do all of the things and it could have no effect on my cancer journey or my health issues. And so I really think, for me, prayer and obviously like petitioning with the Lord for healing and believing that I am left side of heaven and there are things that can go wrong, and knowing that I'm left side of glory, but also like, God, you can move mountains. And I've seen you do it in the Bible multiple times. So what makes you think that I can't ask for these things in faith in Jesus' name here and now, And so that has been a huge part of my journey, and not just prayer, but also trusting in the Lord and His sovereignty and His plans. And none of this was a surprise to God when I got diagnosed. It was a surprise to me. And I was on a podcast recently, I think it came out last night, it did. And one of the questions was, are you angry with God when you got diagnosed? And anger is not the word. I mean, I've definitely wrestled with God. I've struggled with fear and anxiety, but it's more, I trust in His sovereignty, and prayer is just a way to commune with Him. And He's changed my heart through prayer when I wrestle or when I'm having a hard time. And so, yeah, we can talk about all these healthy things and we can talk about all these biohacking things, but if you're not right with the Lord and you don't have that peace that surpasses all understanding, like going through these things is going to be really difficult left side of heaven. And so, yeah, I cannot imagine going what I've gone through not knowing the Lord. I mean, I can't imagine. I don't know how people face what I've done. And people say all the time, you're so strong and you're so encouraging. And I'm like, no, man, it is the Holy Spirit in me, because it's hard and I struggle, but I don't know how people walk through stuff like this without knowing the Lord.
Yeah, you have walked through such a hard season of life, and to come out of it with energy and vibrancy and excitement isn't a tremendous example to suffer well. And sometimes it's easy to say on this side of it, but suffering is oftentimes an invitation from God to worship with our limitedness, and to trust his unlimitedness, and to say, Lord, I don't know. I don't have the answers. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I know that you are infinite and I'm finite, and what you have for me is what you have for me. And that's not easy to get to that space, as you well know, but cast all your anxieties on me. My yoke is easy, but my burden is light. That's an invitation for all of us. As we listen to this, man, what could we step into to trust God even in the midst of something like a brain tumor?
Yeah, and I think one thing that I just have to add is I would say going through the valley and walking through the suffering that I never would have chosen. If someone would have said, here's a multiple choice, would you have wanted this? Absolutely not. No way, no how. I would never have chosen this. But man, I have seen God's faithfulness in ways that I've seen his faithfulness in the past, and that's what has compelled me to trust him for the future, walking through this, knowing like, okay, God, you are faithful. You've proved faithful time and time again. But I will say the lens that I view life through, not just spiritually, but even as a mother, like, I think we get overburdened by our kids sometimes, and we're so busy and we have to do this and we have to go to carpool line. And for me, God's reframed my entire mindset. Just like, I get to do this. This is a privilege. This is an honor. I'm here. My kid wakes up in the middle of the night. Sure, I love my sleep, but guess what? I get to go up there. And some people don't get that opportunity and privilege. And so I'm really thankful for the way that the Lord has just given me a new lens on life. It has reframed everything and how I view my life, my children, my work, my friendships, my marriage. And so for that, I'm really grateful.
So inspiring, Taylor. Your story is amazing. It's so cool to see you before you got diagnosed and then after, and the amount of excitement and energy you have, and to see your hard work pay off. But of course, not without God's influence. Where can people know more about you, find more about you, check out some of the products you guys sell?
Sure. So I mentioned the blog. I'm so passionate. Before I even sell products, I'm education first. I just want to equip people with free resources and knowledge, because knowledge is power. And so I have a website and a blog with, so many articles, and that's just taylordukeswellness.com. I do have my own brand of supplements: protein powder, electrolytes, healthy hot chocolate, lemonade, protein pancakes, mineral salt. And so that's at shop.taylordukeswellness.com. And then I love just sharing stuff on Instagram, tons of free resources, health hacks. You can't take stuff as medical advice. I'm not your medical provider, but that's my passion project. I just love sharing and educating. And so that's just Taylor Dukes Wellness on Instagram.
Taylor, thanks so much for being on the show. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was an honor.
One more thing. The statements in this video or audio have not been evaluated by the FDA, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Information provided here is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The information provided by this website and or by this podcast is not a substitute for a physician visit and should not be taken as medical advice of any sort or kind. This is a list of resources for further self-research and work with your personal physician if needed. By using any of this information, by watching, listening, or reading it, you are accepting responsibility for your own health and health decisions, and expressly release this podcast, its participants, and its websites from any and all liability whatsoever, including that which might come from negligence. Also, don't smoke cigarettes, don't do drugs, stay in school, don't touch hot surfaces, and please wear your safety glasses when cutting wood.